Awesome Blossom.
This is the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Your hosts are Seth Jacobson and Patrick Heiler.
Well, get started?
Am I settled? I think I'm settled. Yeah, let's get started.
Today we're talking about the prologue of the Dragon Reborn, Fortress of the Light, and our symbol is the sunburst.
For the White Cloaks, obviously.
Yeah. This whole chapter is
100% White Cloaks.
Yeah. All White Cloak all the time.
This is your All White Cloak channel all the time, bringing you the worst of the worst.
Neil's the best of the worst.
Yeah, he is. He's pretty good. Do you see that Twitter poll where they were saying who's the worst, the Trollocs, the Shan Chan, or the White Cloaks?
Yeah.
And the White Cloaks took it.
The White Cloaks beat the Trollocs.
Yeah, they did. I think a lot of people had some sympathy for the Trollocs. It's in their nature. They're not, they're more of a force of nature, less of like evil. Well, I mean, they're evil.
An evil force of nature.
Yeah. The White Cloaks have a choice, and they chose poorly. And Shan Chan are close, but they are offset by also bringing stability and peace to the world.
Some good, interesting characters. Well, should I read us in? On the page before the first page. And his paths shall be many, and who shall know his name? For he shall be born among us many times, in many guises, as he has been and ever will be, time without end. His coming shall be like the sharp edge of the plough, turning our lives in furrows from out of the places where we lie in our silence. The breaker of bonds, the forger of chains, the maker of futures, the unshaper of destiny. From Commentaries on the Dragon, by Jurith Doreen. Right hand to the Queen of Almoran, 742 AB. The Third Age.
Queen of Almoran. That was definitely one of those countries that was completely wiped out by the Trolloc Wars.
That sounds right. Because if it was there in 742, I'm looking. Yeah, it was one of the original 10 nations.
Yep. Or did Arthur Hawkwing wipe him out when he aligned everybody? Which apocalypse did it disappear during? The first one or the second one?
The second one.
Okay.
Because it was one of the 10 nations that made a pact after the breaking. It's where Cairhien is currently.
Well, then wouldn't that be the first apocalypse? Because if they were around after the breaking, they would have been wiped out by the Trolloc Wars. And then...
Oh, I'm thinking of the Trolloc Wars as the second apocalypse.
We get them confused. But no, Arthur Hawkwing and the 100-Year War after his death was the second apocalypse.
Its capital city was called Alcairhien or Jesus.
Yeah, that was pretty good. It's got Cairhien in there.
Yeah.
And so Cairhien is just like a shortened version of the word. I mean, basically, I see this as being he's Ta'veren. He's going to be really powerfully Ta'veren.
Yeah, and this is from a book called Commentaries on the Prophecies of the Dragon. So it's like someone studied them.
Yeah,
I presume, and wrote a book.
We hear that over and over again, that he breaks all bonds that bind.
Yeah.
He's turning over nations, he's scattering people to the four winds, and he will always be.
And it's kind of an appropriate intro to the Dragon Reborn.
Yeah. Not that we ever see the Dragon Reborn.
Very little.
Very, very little. Not until the end, but it's, what a great ending.
Read us into the prologue. Is it Padron? Niall?
I might say Nile.
Nile?
But I think that's wrong. Niall is the correct way.
I got the first two words ready.
Making the audiobooks must have been really hard.
Yeah. Pedro Niall's aged gaze wandered about his private audience chamber, but dark eyes hazed with thought saw nothing. Tattered wall hangings, once battle banners of the enemies of his youth, faded into dark wood paneling laid over stone walls, thick even here in the heart of the Fortress of the Light. The single chair in the room, heavy, high-backed, and almost a throne, was as invisible to him as the few scattered tables that completed the furnishings. Even the white-cloaked man kneeling with barely restrained eagerness on the great sunburst set in wide planks of the floor had vanished from Niall's mind for the moment, though few would have dismissed him so lightly. Jarrett Byhar had been given time to wash before being brought to Niall, but both his helmet and his breastplate were dulled from travel and battered from use. Dark, Deep-set eyes shone with a feverish, urgent light in a face that seemed to have every spare scrap of flesh boiled away. He wore no sword. None was allowed in Niall's presence. But he seemed poised on the edge of violence, like a hound, awaiting the loosing of the leash. Jarrett, the good dog.
To start off this chapter, I want to do something a little bit differently. Because we have 4 main characters in this chapter.
Okay.
And each of them has something going on behind the scenes that is not obvious upon first reading. And so I want to lay that out there so we can be aware of those items as we go through it.
Sure. What for Niall?
Niall has been brushed by Padden Fane and is suffering from severe paranoia and delusions of grandeur.
Fair.
And he is not normally this greedy for land and power.
And he does seem to make a crack decision later to not do anything about Rand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's very reckless of him. And he says even later that Fane Ordeith helped him put it all together.
Yeah.
So there's, secret motivations behind Patron Niall's motivations. Jacob Carradine, we know from past history, is Bors, aka from the previous prologue.
Dark Friend alert.
Dark Friend. We know that,
Bayar.
We don't know that, but I suspect that Bayar has been compulsed by Grendel during his journey back from Almouth Plain, from Falma.
Yeah, we strongly suspect that Grendel, when she later mentions, what does she call him, a knife hidden amongst the White Cloaks?
I think so, or a tool or something like that.
And he eventually tries to kill Perrin when his back is turned, and Dane Bornhald kills Bayar to stop him.
Exactly. We think that's the knife she was referring to, or the weapon she was referring to among the White Cloaks.
I looked into it. It's pretty popular fan theory.
And he would have traveled right by her estate, where we later find out it turned out to be.
Yeah.
On his way back. So it's very easy that he could have been sworn up. And then, of course, the last character of the 4 I wanted to talk about was...
Ordeith?
Oh, yeah, that Ordeith is Fane. Those are all the characters in the chapter, right?
4 characters tainted by the dark.
And all in very different ways.
Yeah.
Because you've got,
Good catch.
Jacob Carradine, who is a willing dark friend. Bayar, who's an unwilling dark friend. Niall, who's corrupted by the taint of Shadar Logoth from Fane. And, of course,
Fane is Fane.
Fane is Fane. Any questions? A lot here, except for Niall bemusing over how old he is and then recapping a little bit. I feel like this whole thing about the dragon, the name, and then he goes on to recap everything we know about.
His time was growing short. Yeah, he looks at the chalk drawings of Rand that have been getting distributed. This boy proclaimed himself the Dragon Reborn, Niall muttered. I like this line in Niall's thoughts. 3,000 years, but prophecy and legend help men remember. The heart of it, at least, if the details were gone. Luce Theron Kinslayer, the man who had begun the breaking of the world.
And a lot of the White Cloak's source of enmity for the Aes Sedai can be traced back to that they see the power of the breaking as something that man shouldn't have, and that anyone who tries to have it is automatically evil.
Just trying to challenge the creator.
Exactly. Some of the mythos of the White Cloaks and how they go about justifying their hate of Aes Sedai.
And all channelers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They conflate the two. All channelers are Aes Sedai to White Cloaks.
Yeah.
Which is part of why they can't understand the Shan Chan.
Bayar talks about all the fighting centered around Almouth Plain. He says the snow may have damped it down because it's winter now, but come spring the flames will burst out hotter than before. And he's right.
Yeah, I mean, basically all the stuff that's fallen apart in Rand's presence. The next thing I had is Jeffrey Bornhald and 1,000 of the children are dead, and Aes Sedai did it. You have no doubts, Child Bayar? It's like, yeah, it's not Aes Sedai. It's Shan Chan. They're different.
They cost us more than 50 dead, Bayar responds, before we stuck them full of arrows. You are sure they were Aes Sedai. The ground erupted under our feet. Bayar's voice was full of belief. He had little imagination, did Jarrett Bayar. Death was part of a soldier's life, however it came. He says lightning struck the ranks, basically what else could they have been?
And that's, back to the conflation of
Anyone who channels.
Anyone who channels is an Aes Sedai.
Yeah.
They don't understand that there's all sorts of different types of channelers.
They don't seem to know very much about channeling at all.
Yeah. Ignorance breeds fear, and fear breeds hate. And I think the White Cloaks are a prime example of that.
Niall says, "And you know nothing of those who took Falma and killed half of one of my legions?" Lord Captain Bornhold said they called themselves Shanshan, my Lord Captain Commander, Byar said stolidly. He said they were dark friends. And a little later, everyone I spoke to agreed the strangers had broken and fled. Lord Captain Bornhold did that.
They're so close to the truth,
Yes.
and they just miss it and go flying by it. Like, the strangers broke and fled. True. Lord Captain Bornhold did that. False.
He helped by creating a distraction.
It was the Heroes of the Horn, though, that drove him off.
Yeah.
I mean, Bornhold's 1,000 soldiers, 1 or 2 of the Shanshan probably just were like, yeah, take him out. No big deal. Because they couldn't see. It was mist. They couldn't, shoot anybody full of arrows.
Right.
So I'm sure they just got wasted.
Niall sighed softly. And I like this part because Niall agrees with us about Byar when he says or thinks, "A good soldier," Niall thought about Byar. So Geoffrey Bornhold always says, but not a man to think for himself. Byar repeats his orders for the 4th time to Niall.
Is this one of the early mentions of Eamon Valda here? I don't recall hearing about him before.
He may have been mentioned, but this is the first time we really learn about who he is and how important. Because we do hear Geoffrey Bornhold's orders to Byar, which is to... Oh, no, it's to go to Niall, not...
No, it's to go to his son first, and then to Niall.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying, because eventually Valda becomes Lord Captain Commander of the children, and then he's eventually killed by Galad for raping his mother.
Yeah.
Raping and killing his mother. He's wrong about the killing part, but he's right about the raping part. So don't feel bad, because Valda rapes the hell out of her. Oh, yeah, maybe I should tamp that down. But if you weren't aware...
No, it's a thing. That happens.
It's a thing, that's what happened. After Niall died, and that happened while Morghese was in his custody, and those two had a sort of a working relationship, even though he was using her, Valda took over and just abused the hell out of her.
Dane Bornhold is with Eamon Valda, near Tarvalon at last report. You may join them, Niall says to Byar.
And then as Byar turns to leave, we get a little bit of what I think is proof of the compulsion.
My Lord Captain Commander, we were betrayed. Hatred gave his voice a saw-toothed edge.
And so he is just gnashing at the teeth about parents. Really, he barely has met him. Can you read this whole thing? Because I think it's just perfect.
By this one dark friend you spoke of, child Byar? He could not keep an edge out of his own voice. A year's planning lay in ruins amid the corpses of 1,000 of the children, and Byar wanted to talk only of this one man. This young blacksmith you've seen only twice. This Perrin from the 2 rivers. Yes, my Lord Captain Commander. I do not know how, but I know he is to blame. I know it.
So a couple of things. First of all, I think that orders have changed to kill all 3 of the young men. After Ishamael got stabbed through the chest at the end of the Great Hunt, he now wants Rand dead. He spends this entire book trying to hunt him down with dark hounds, and at the end tries to kill him.
Yeah.
And he wants the boys dead too.
And Ishamael goes back and forth with this, where he
does.
Puts out a hit and then takes it back at least twice.
He doesn't want to kill him initially. When he's still from the 2 rivers, he wants to use him. He wants to capture him. He's got Fane hunting him down so he can get a hold of him and turn him to the dark. He's appearing in his dreams, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
He gets burned. He's like, lucky farm boy, had the eye of the world, whatever. Then he gets stabbed, and he's like, oh, hell no, I'm going after this guy. And then he gets killed. And then he resets his Moradin. And that's a whole nother thing. But he rarely actually is trying to kill Rand. He's mostly, in the beginning, trying to convert him, and then eventually trying to make him so miserable that Veins of Gold doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Evidence of that is that Grendel would have then compelled Byar to try and kill Perrin.
I like it.
That if she came across him, found out that he knew Perrin of the 2 rivers, she would have easily changed that vague knowing about him. Because at the end of the Great Hunt, he's like, oh yeah, we were betrayed by dark friends, but he almost doesn't even mention Perrin. He doesn't really think about him very much. It's
Yeah.
not intense. Here it is super intense.
He sees Perrin leaving the last town they're in before Falma, or thinks he sees him. And I mean, Perrin is there. And when they leave right before the White Cloaks get there, pretty much. He mentions it, but yeah, he seems crazed in the way that Ingtar was lusting for the horn in like a unreasonable way. It looks very similar.
And in particular, the line, "I do not know how, but I know he is to blame. I know it." That's just compulsion. That's like, he doesn't have a reason. He doesn't know why he thinks Perrin is to blame. He just knows it. That's compulsion to a T.
Yeah, I'm nodding for that.
And then in the next paragraph, Niall thinks to himself, what had brought on Byer's hatred of this Perrin? There were far too many dark friends to waste energy on hating any particular one. This is unusual for Byer. Even Patron Niall notices that.
Yeah, Niall shifts on his chair, trying to find comfort for his old bones. Next paragraph, he let all the signs of the foretold disaster swirl through his mind. War gripped Tarabon and Aradoman, civil war ripped at Cairien, and war fever was rising in Tyr and Ilion. He thinks about all the different false dragons that were active until last month.
Well, I think there's actually, he hasn't heard that they've fallen, but we know the Almouth Plain one gets killed. He falls off his horse and gets beheaded right away. We never find out his name. Oh, sorry. Let me rephrase that. The one in...
I would assume the one in Almouth Plain is Rand.
The one in Almouth Plain is Rand. I'm sorry. The one in Saldea is Taim.
Yeah.
So the one in Tyr must get killed.
Yeah, the one whose forces were hiding in Haddon Merk.
Okay. And Rand appears in the sky, and he falls off his horse and is killed.
Yeah, I believe that's the one.
Yeah.
Because it's not Taim. Are we agreeing on Taim?
Taim.
It is not in the glossary of this book.
He is not in this book, really. I don't think he's named in this book, is he? Mazrun Taim. Then we get another listing of a bunch of things that we kind of know about.
Sightings of Aiel reported as far west as Murundi and Kandor.
Yeah, the sea folk looking for the Commodore.
Coromor.
I always say Commodore in my head. That's one of those things I read wrong growing up, and I've never been able to change it.
The sea folk were said to be ignoring trade to seek signs and portents. Of what, exactly, they would not say.
We know about the hunt for the horn, and we hear about the Ogier having meetings, which is, we assume, is the Great Stump.
Right. Well, they're sending out messages, I guess, somehow, to gather all the elders to make some decisions.
And we know they start now because they make a decision in only 2 years. That's super fast.
Yeah, for the Ogier.
For the Ogier, that's super sprint time. Oh, we do get Mazrim Taim's name here.
Mazrim Taim.
Taim. And I said it wrong, didn't I? Yes.
It's okay, I did already. Niall tries to puzzle out why the Aes Sedai would apparently, at least to him, pull down one false dragon and support another. And he means support Rand in Almouth Plain. Only maybe he could think a little harder about that. It might just be because Rand is the actual Dragon Reborn.
No, well, he's not willing to admit that.
Yeah.
He goes into this weird, deep rationale about how there's going to be a last battle, but not the last battle. And it's very, very Fane, paranoid, influenced.
But it's clear to Niall that the last battle was really coming. I always thought it was interesting and adroit of him that he means to make use of this turmoil. He had new plans with new objectives. A deferential tap on the door brought him out of his dark thoughts. "Come," he snapped. Eyes to the floor, a servant announces, "Jacob Carradine."
That one actually looks like it sounds.
Nice. Inquisitor of the Hand of the Light. Come at the command of the Lord Captain Commander. I'm skipping a bit. "As you have commanded my presence, my Lord Captain Commander," he said in a strong voice, "so I have returned from Tarabon." "Rise, child Carradine," Niall added. "I have had disturbing news from Falma." I thought it was interesting that Carradine's response is, "My Lord Captain Commander" refers to the news brought by child Jarrett Byar, late second to the Lord Captain Bornhold. The corner of Niall's left eye fluttered, an old presage of anger. Supposedly, only 3 men knew Byar was in Amador, and none besides Niall knew where he came. Do not be too clever, Carradine. Your desire to know everything may one day lead you to the hands of your own questioners.
So I think this is another reason why Bayar may have been compulsed.
Because how could Carradine know?
Exactly.
When Niall's made sure that this was kept a secret. He says only 3 people are supposed to know, including himself and Bayar.
So we think it came through the Dark Friend network.
I didn't notice that, but where else would it have come from?
And possibly down from Grendel, who just compelled Bayar.
Everyone's saying this is proto-Shadar Haran. Is that right? We have a general consensus?
RJ confirmed it was an early incarnation of him?
My Lord Captain Commander, the hand seeks out truth everywhere to serve the light. And what truth do you have for me about what occurred in Falma? Niall responds. Dark friends, my Lord Captain Commander. I'm just going to go ahead and keep reading. Dark friends? Niall's chuckle held no amusement. A few weeks gone, I was receiving reports from you that Geoffrey Bornhold was a servant of the Dark One, because he moved soldiers onto Toman Head against your orders. His voice became dangerously soft. Do you now mean me to believe that Bornhold, as a Dark Friend, led 1,000 of the children to their deaths, fighting other Dark Friends?
The Lord works in mysterious ways. I also like since he died before he could be put to the question, we'll never know. Like, that's the only way to figure out if someone's a Dark Friend.
Right, torture.
Torture, that's it.
Come on. Carradine goes on for a second, and Niall responds, and what of the stories of those who took Falma that came from across the Aryth Ocean? Carradine shook his head. My Lord Captain Commander, the people are full of rumors. Some claim that they were the armies of Arthur Hawkwing sent across the ocean 1,000 years ago, come back to claim this land. Why? Some even claim to have seen Arthur Hawkwing himself in Falma.
I love how he scoffs at all the rumor, and it's totally ridiculous.
Both those things are true.
Also, yeah, Dark Friends love throwing it around. It's such a great tool for them.
Yeah.
To accuse somebody of being a Dark Friend.
Niall asks for proof, and Carradine, of course, has none.
And again, he gives Bornhold credit for dispersing the Shan-Chan, which is not at all how it went.
Right.
And then he gives this sort of 2-part proof that's kind of ridiculous.
Really weak.
Dude, how many logical fallacies can you fall for in this thing? The first part is negative. Okay, I can throw it out right there, right? If it's negative, it just doesn't prove a goddamn thing. It just means that the ships that went out didn't come back. They either ran into enemies and got sunk, or maybe they had enough supplies to get across and couldn't come back, or maybe other people were more technologically sound than you are. Either way, proves absolutely nothing.
Here, yeah, Carradine's just basically saying, well, when ships go there, they don't ever come back, or they turn around before they get anywhere because they run out of food. So logically, no one could ever do it ever.
Exactly.
Because it hasn't been done.
Because it hasn't been done.
And the second, my Lord Captain Commander, many of those questions spoke of monsters fighting for the Dark Friends, who held to their claims even under the last degree of the question. What could they be but Trollocs and other shadow spawn?
I've only ever seen these monsters, so there are no other monsters in the world. None whatsoever. They just take whatever information they are given and fit it into their narrative. It's very frustrating to see that happen in politics.
Niall actually agrees in his mind, but he doesn't tell Carradine that he believes that the monsters were shadow spawn.
I like this line. I said I could no doubt make people believe a cat could channel if they wanted to.
They probably could.
Probably could. But then people are idiots, so, especially when it comes to channeling. They don't have any ability to understand
what's
how
happening.
It really works.
Yeah.
So.
I liked this shortly after the line you just read. Even a false dragon, Niall said dryly, is not enough to make them forget 400 years of squabbling over possession of Almouth Plain. He's talking about the Taraboners and Domani.
I like as if either of them ever had the strength to hold it. Well, that's because he wanted it. And he's freaking pissed at Carradine. That's right after that he says Carradine's face had not changed. That's a barb at Carradine. Basically say, neither one of them could hold it, but guess what? Neither could you.
Yeah.
Pedro Niall says he's a fine tactician, which we know he's considered one of the great captains.
Yeah.
Certainly not by the last battle because he's dead, but he is considered one of the best captains at this point. What did he fight in his youth where he got all's renown? Wasn't there a White Cloak War?
The White Cloak War.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was that 20 years ago?
It happened right before the Aiel War broke out, and Tam Althor fought in the White Cloak were on the side of Ilion.
Knowledge drop.
So it fought against White Cloaks. Why, Niall said quietly, did you not take your own forces to Falma? With dark friends on Toman Head, an army of them holding Falma, why did you try to stop Bornhald? Carradine blinked, but his voice remained steady. At first, they were only rumors, my lord Captain Commander, rumors so wild no one could believe. By the time I learned the truth, Bornhald had joined battle. He was dead, and the dark friends scattered. Besides, my task was to bring the light to Almouth Plain. I could not disobey my orders.
Such a weasel.
And then Niall gets...
pretty pissed.
Yeah. Your task?
I love
Niall said, his voice rising as he stood. Carradine topped him by a head, but the Inquisitor stepped back. Your task? Your task was to seize Almouth Plain, an empty bucket that no one holds except by words and claims, and all you had to do was fill it. The nation of Almouth would have lived again, ruled by the Children of the Light, with no need to pay lip service to a fool of a king. Amadisha and Almouth, a vice gripping Tarabon. In 5 years, we would have held sway there as much as here in Amadisha, and you made a dog's dinner of it. The smile went at last. My lord Captain Commander, Carradine protested. How could I foresee what happened?
Because he caused it to happen by following the
purpose.
orders of the Dark and doing false flag operations across the border to sow chaos and discord.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but other than that, I have no idea how he could have foreseen it. No idea.
Carradine's kind of realizing how big of trouble he's in, even though the pot gets hotter in a minute. I can find and destroy this false dragon before his followers unite, he tries to promise. No, Niall snapped. Your plans are done with, Carradine. Perhaps I should hand you over to your own questioners right now. A few days under the question, and you would confess to anything. Name yourself a dark friend, even. You would go under the headsman's axe in a week.
I like that. You would name yourself Dark Friend even. Well, yeah.
At least Niall isn't self-deceiving.
No. Well, I mean, I don't think Niall knows he's a Dark Friend. I just think he knows that, like, by being put under the question.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That anyone would name themselves
Exactly.
a dark friend.
He just happens to be talking to an actual Dark Friend at this point in time.
Yeah. There was sweat beading on Carradine's forehead. My Lord Captain Commander, he stopped to swallow. My Lord Captain Commander seems to be saying there is another way. If you will but speak it, I am sworn to obey. Now, Niall thought. Now to toss the dice.
So, wild, out of the left speculation. Now to toss the dice is a phrase we see come up an awful lot, particularly with a certain character who has also been influenced by Shadar Logoth. We know that perhaps Matt's luck has something to do with the stripping away of the dagger and his relationship with it. Is it somehow that there's a weird time to toss the dice expression that's caused by the luck that's influenced by Shadar Logoth?
Maybe.
Probably not. It's probably just more likely a common saying that more than one person uses.
Varen says it once too, right?
Yeah.
She said it at the end of Great Hunt, I think.
Hence why I'm prefacing this with wild out of the left speculation. But, you know, I was thinking about that while I was reading this. I was just like,
I do like it. Wait a minute. Let's see. Varen's from Farmatting. Yeah, I mean, you know.
That makes sense to me, is that it's like a great commander type thought that, like, you just got to gamble every once in a while as a commander. Like, you can't know everything, and so you have to toss the dice.
Child Carradine, Niall says firmly, you will make certain that the false dragon does not die, and if any Aes Sedai come to oppose rather than support him, you will make use of your knives in the dark. The Inquisitor's jaw dropped. Yet he recovered quickly, eyeing Niall in a speculative fashion. To kill Aes Sedai is duty, but to allow the false dragon to roam free, that would be treason. Niall drew a deep breath. He was committed now. It is no treason to do what must be done, and even blasphemy can be tolerated for a cause. This is interesting.
Yeah. So the whole Loose a Lion plan.
Yeah.
Let Rand live, let him scare everybody, and then when you come in and kill him, they'll all listen to you. I don't think in a million years Niall would have done this without Padden Fane's influence.
And he does say later that Ordeith helped him make the plan.
Exactly. Now, I don't really understand why that would be something that he would have him do, other than just, like, letting more chaos emerge. by having him.
Why would Ordeith want that?
Yeah. It's because Fane probably wants him for himself, is my best guess.
I would think so.
Or he wants to unite the countries against Rand so that he could stop him. That was my other thought.
If Fane's at Niall's side now, and Rand is allowed to be the loose lion, as Niall says, and then Niall's plan works, then not only will Ordeith be able to eventually kill Rand or have him killed, but he'll also have a powerful army behind him. That's my best guess.
And we do know that Fane, or Mordeth, likes to set himself up Wormtongue style behind a throne of power.
Yeah.
And control things from there. And so it makes sense that he would, find someone powerful and sort of work within the constraints of what Niall wants. And then Carradine gets the first of 2 death threats here.
Yeah. Basically explains to Carradine what he's going to do and how Carradine's going to help. Carradine says, I will obey. I hear and obey. When Niall responds, in case your oath is not strong enough, know this. If the false dragon dies before I command his death, or if he is taken by the Tarvalin witches, you will be found one morning with a dagger in your heart. And should any accident befall me, even if I should die of old age, you will not survive me the month. I also noticed that the next line is, he, Carradine, felt cold. The dice were spinning, with no way of telling what pips would show when they stopped.
I totally missed that. Dude, the dice rattling in his head? Come on, that has to be a Shadar Logoth connection.
Maybe. I mean, it's weird that it's peppered into this chapter here.
It does seem weird. It does seem really weird. Oh, but again, back to the Great General thing.
Yeah.
They could just be foreshadowing Matt being a Great General.
And the kind of common jargon amongst tacticians and soldiers.
Right. They have the 2 things in common. They both have some Shadar Logoth influence, and they're both great generals. So it's hard to really separate out which is which.
Yeah.
And since we don't really see any, well, let's keep an eye out for this, but I don't see any of that with Elida in the White Tower.
True.
After she's influenced by Fane. So I'll keep an eye out for it, but I'm guessing this is more just great general stuff.
I think so, but it's interesting that it's in there.
Oh, and I guess these aren't like the dice in his head. He's just saying the dice he's thrown the dice and now they're spinning. He's waiting to see where they're going to fall.
Yeah.
He's not hearing the dice in his head.
It's a rabid lion in the streets. A rabid lion? Niall spun on his heel as the bony little man with a huge beak of a nose slipped from behind one of the hanging banners. There was just a glimpse of a panel swinging shut as the banner fell back against the wall. I showed you that passage, Ordeith, Niall snapped, so that you could come when I summoned you without half the fortress knowing, not so you could listen to my private conversations.
And I'm sure he does.
Fane, of course, denies it. His name was a lie, of course. And the old tongue, Ordeith, meant wormwood.
It has to be a Tolkien reference.
Probably.
Yeah, I'm sure Jordan put that in deliberately. I mean, we know that this character has a lot of similarities to Wormwood, especially the Mordeth character.
Uh-huh.
And the Wormwood of Lord of the Rings. So
oh, yeah.
It's a nod. And it's one I like.
When Niall challenged him on it, though, all Ordeith said was, who we were is lost to all men, and life is bitter. Thought it was interesting that Ordeith refers to himself as we.
Yep. Well, he's still 2 people.
Yeah.
2 very, very crazy people.
It was he who helped Niall see the pattern emerging in events.
We've mentioned that quote a few times, but that's a big one.
Yeah.
It shows just how much of what he sees and what he plans is based on the paranoia that Fane has brought to him. And I wonder if that paranoia has anything to do with why he puts out a hit on Carradine.
Who puts a hit?
Niall basically says, if I die,
yeah,
you'll...
plans
that...
the paranoia of being around Ordeith
Yep.
is what made him tell Carradine that.
Or to make that plan. How often would you normally, if I die, you're going to be assassinated? That's really pretty paranoid.
Yeah, but I mean, also what Niall is saying, it may not be that paranoid. I don't know. I see what you're getting at, and I like it, but it's Wormtongue and Tolkien and Wormwood and RJ. But it's a very similar thing.
In similar roles, doing similar things.
Yeah. Ordith moved to the table and took up one of the drawings. As he unrolled it enough to reveal the young man's face, his smile deepened nearly to a grimace. Weird.
He's not really grinning. He's more...
crazed smiling.
Yeah, what's the... baring his teeth is like an animal is more that I think. He's just constantly like ready to rip your throat out, and everyone sees it as a smile. Snarling, yeah. Like
A false dragon, Ordith said softly. Yes, yes, of course, it must be. Who else could it be? And he barked a shrill laugh that grated Niall's nerves. Sometimes Niall thought Ordith was at least half mad. But he is clever, mad or not. What do you mean, Ordith? You sound as if you know him.
Oh, he knows him.
Yeah.
He's had his essence distilled back into him.
To hunt him.
And of course he knows all three boys.
Ordith gives his typical thing that he tried to do with the Shan-Chan, where he's like, his name is Randall Thor, he's from the Two Rivers, and he's deep in the shadow. You've got to get him.
Dark friend calling a dark friend black.
Yeah. The Two Rivers, Niall mused. Someone else mentioned another dark friend from there, another youth. Strange to think of dark friends coming from a place like that.
And then Fane's like bullshit, like, what better place for dark friends in a village in the middle of nowhere? It's like, what? It's not with farmers.
Yeah, what are you going to do?
Yeah, like, I think we even had this conversation before. It's like, what are you going to do? Like, poison the grain?
Convert the sheep to the dark?
Right.
It's not...
not really gonna do anything for you.
Another great lord, Ordith said. This is something that we talked about before, but Fane always calls the people who latch on to word. Capital G, capital L. It's weird.
It's the Dark Friends' salutation for their lord, and he uses it constantly. Great lord. Yeah, and I just highlighted it. It's all at 1, 2, 3, 4. It's like there's 4 places in here where he says...
Yeah, he says it over and over. 3 of them, you say, Niall says. Nothing comes out of the Two Rivers but wool and tabac. I doubt if there is another place men live that is more isolated from the rest of the world. And this is where Fane says, what better place for them to hide but out in the middle of nowhere, where their plans can't affect anything except radishes and wool.
Rand showed up to shear sheep and kick ass, and he's all out of sheep. Fane saying, I can't tell you everything I know, but it's like, yeah, but you can tell me all the relevant stuff to the guy who appeared in the sky. Like,
right.
You know,
seems kind of important, man.
Yeah, dude. That's a liar's excuse. I can't tell you everything. Yeah, but you knew this was relevant. You knew I would have wanted to know this.
Fane, I don't know if it's a slip or what, but calls Rand the dragon. Niall corrects him, false dragon.
I mean, Fane knows he's the dragon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a slip or...
He just doesn't care. He just says whatever, and like... he's totally... And people are oh, he's insane.
Out of his mind.
Yeah. But then they kind of dismiss it because he's influencing their mind. So like, he's crazy, but he's smart. It's like, well...
Suddenly, Niall became aware of the drawing crumpled and torn in Ordith's hands. Even while the man's face remained smooth except for that sardonic smile, his hands twitched convulsively around the parchment. Stop that, Niall commanded. I do not have so many likenesses of this man that I can allow them to be destroyed. Forgive me, great lord. I think that's the 5th time he says it. Ordith made a deep bow, his smile never slipping. I hate dark friends.
And mostly just Rand. He mostly just hates Rand.
Niall studied the face in chalks. Randall Thor of the Two Rivers. Perhaps I must make plans for the Two Rivers when the snow clears. Perhaps. As the great lord wishes, Ordith said blandly.
I think that last one...
Is that not great, guys?
He's not referring to Pedro Niall there in that last one. Yeah. I honestly don't think Fane hates that many people.
He, is hate and disdain.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's like, but he hates Rand.
Yeah.
He's just dismissive of everyone. Like, he'll just kill Trollocs, kill people. Like, he hates the Dark One. He hates Rand. So we get a perspective switch to Bors, a.k.a. Jacob Carradine.
Jacob Carradine. The grimace on Carradine's face as he strode through the halls of the fortress made other men avoid him.
Yeah, he gets more prologue time than any other character.
Carradine?
Yeah. At least in these first 3 books.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he's at the
Dark Friend
whole
Social.
Perspective of the Dark Friend Social is from Carradine.
Yep. So he's like the entire first prologue and this prologue as well. Or a good chunk of this one.
storms into his quarters yelling for his body servant.
Sharoom, right?
Sharboon? Sharboon? I don't know.
Sharboon. Good thing for Sharboon he wasn't there, or else that Murdral would have just, like, taken his head off for kicks.
Probably. He calls for his servant, and a movement caught the corner of his eye, and he turned ready to shrivel Charbon with curses. The curses themselves shriveled as a Murdral took another step toward him with the sinuous grace of a serpent. I'm going to read this because of what we were talking about before. It was a man in form, no larger than most, but there the resemblance ended. Dead black clothes and cloak, hardly seeming to stir as it moved, made its maggot-white skin appear ever paler. It had no eyes. That eyeless gaze filled Carradine with fear, as it had filled thousands before. What? Carradine stopped to work moisture back into his mouth. What are you doing here? The half-man's bloodless lips quirked in a smile. Where there is shadow, there may I go. Its voice sounded like a snake wrestling through dead leaves. I like to keep a watch on all those who serve me. Some people seem to think that this is the first, like this is the beta test of Shadar Haran.
Or like the baby version of it. It's not tall yet.
He does say, or the Murdral does say, I like to keep a watch on all those who serve me.
And that's a good point, that no other Murdral really says the Dark Friends serve them. They say, you serve the Dark Lord, not me.
Right, a little after that.
And also, the half-man's bloodless lips quirked in a smile. The only half-man we ever see smile is Shadar Haran.
We both serve. If you wish to see it so, the Murdral laughed, a sound that made Carradine's bones shiver.
That's another good point, that, like, you might see it that way. The thing is, I am the Great Lord.
Right.
I don't serve the Great Lord.
Or at least, because we know that 3 seals are broken now. And when is the 4th broken? Later, right?
Yeah.
Way later.
It gets carried.
Well, by the time we see Shadar Haran and we know that it's Shadar Haran, are any more seals broken?
I think just the one. Because between now and the last battle, only 1 seal breaks.
Okay, because
3 are broken now.
Yeah.
3 are intact at the last battle. That's 6. There's only 7.
And what I'm kind of getting at is that, I mean, this very well could be Proto Shadar Haran, because when the 4th seal breaks, whenever that is,
maybe he gets taller.
I can't remember exactly. Maybe, well, the Dark One has a stronger ability to reach into the world, so his avatar is a little better.
Stronger. Yeah, that makes sense.
But at this point, it's just a better Murdral, but not, a super Murdral.
I think of it more as a Murdral with personality.
Yeah.
He smiles, he laughs, he's joking around a little bit. Murdral don't do that. They'll torture and kill you, but they don't joke.
Yeah, and this Murdral does seem like it has more personality and liveliness than the other ones. Still, I will know why you are here instead of on Almouth Plain. And when Carradine says, I was commanded here by word of the Lord Captain Commander, the Murdral grated. Your Lord Captain Commander's words are dung. You were commanded to find the human called Randalthor and kill him. That before all else. Above all else. Why are you not obeying? Doesn't that seem like a pretty complex conversation topic for a Murdral? I feel like a regular Murdral would just be like, torturing him at this point.
It's hard to know exactly. I mean, we definitely see the Murdral as clever, and they plan, and they hold conversations. They're intelligent for the most part. They're just full of hatred.
Yeah.
But so I assume, like, Shadar Haran is a Murdral imbued with more of the Dark One. And so he sort of becomes an avatar of the Dark One.
Yeah.
And that's what Shadar Haran is.
Well, I like at least having it as my headcanon that this is the this beta version of Shadar Haran.
And we do have a quote from Robert Jordan saying this is Proto Shadar Haran.
Is that confirmed? Somebody was saying that before.
I don't have it in front of me, but I do seem to remember hearing about it and then having forgotten about it.
I like it.
So I think we're pretty much going to stick with this. I think it's a great one. We started this chapter out not realizing it, and you guys in Discord convinced us. I'm absolutely on board with this.
I like it. That gaze on his back felt like a knife blade grating along his spine. Things have changed. Some matters are not as much in my control as they were. The Murdral makes gouges in his desk with its nails. You forswore your oaths to the light, and swore new oaths, and those oaths you will obey, the Myrddraal says. Carradine started at the gouges marring the polished wood and swallowed hard. I don't understand. Why is it suddenly so important to kill him? I thought the great Lord of the Dark meant to use him. You question me?
Oh, yeah, that's another great one. I thought the great Lord of the Dark. You question me? Not you question the great Lord of the Dark.
Yeah, I should take your tongue. It is not your part to question or to understand. It is your part to obey. You will give dogs lessons in obedience. Do you understand that? Heel, dog, and obey your master.
Again, making it unclear whether he means
both of our masters or me.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I don't see any quotes about this Myrddraal being taller than any others. I was sort of checking about that.
No, there's even a little bit when Carradine describes him and he looks like a regular Myrddraal. Doesn't it say like he was a man as tall as many or something like that?
It was a man in form no larger than most.
Yeah. So he's regular sized, and I think he looks about as physically powerful as any other Myrddraal. He does pick up Carradine and throw him across the room in a second, but that seems...
That's typical Myrddraal.
Approximately, yeah. The Myrddraal moves faster than a striking viper. His heels rose up, and then his toes left the floor. Grunting and gurgling, he dangled in the Myrddraal's grasp. Hear me, human. You will find this youth and kill him as quickly as possible. Do not think you can dissemble. There are others of your children who will tell me if you turn aside in your purpose, but I will give you this to encourage you. If this Randall Thor is not dead in a month, I will take one of your blood, a son, a daughter, a sister, an uncle. You will not know who, until the chosen has died screaming. If he lives another month, I will take another, and then another, and another, and when there is none of your blood left living except yourself, if he still lives, I will take you to Shale Ghul itself. It smiled. You will be years in the dying human. Do you understand me now?
So he basically got two death threats here. One that said, if you don't kill Randall Thor, I'll kill you.
Yeah.
And the other one that says, if you do kill Randall Thor, I'll kill you.
So either way, he's dead.
Yeah. Although I noticed neither one of these threats ever really take place.
Well, Niall dies.
Yeah, but he said if he died, Carradine would have a dagger in his heart.
Oh, yeah.
And that doesn't happen. Because remember, Carradine ends up dying by getting a barrel full of wine down his throat by the assassin.
Skane, yeah. His family is killed slowly.
His family is killed slowly. There's no doubt about that.
I mean, things might be too chaotic for him to be hunted down by the time that
possibly
Niall dies.
Well, and the Seanchan sort of attack, so maybe they disrupted the plans. Who knows?
Yeah, Starmuck, Millie Skane. We saw her once already.
She's the assassin in the barn with the smoking knife.
Yeah.
In Eye of the World. Lady Cheyenne, her real name is Millie Skane. That's right.
I always stick with Skane. I mean, RJ does this all the time because Skane is the name for the ankle knife that you see where, like, when with the tall socks, like underneath a kilt.
Oh,
it's the knife that, yeah, but it's spelled in Gaelic. It's spelled like SG something, SGAIH or something like that. But I just noticed that RJ named her after knives.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
I only have a couple more things. Carradine says I hear and obey. There's no answer. He turns around, and the Myrddraal's gone.
He said earlier, you read this quote a while ago, but he said, where there is shadow, I may go. And I wonder if he's not referring to physical shadows, but people with shadows on their soul. Basically people who are tied to the dark.
Could be.
That he's able to find them and get to them as the Dark One.
And Amadisha is a long way from the Blight. We don't really know very much about Myrddraal's traveling powers, or how they work, or what their limits are, if any. But it would seem that they'd just be appearing everywhere all the time if they could just do this at will and go to literally any shadow.
But it would make more sense to me if this is a Shadow Haran incarnation of the Dark One who's able to follow one of those dark threads that connects him to those who have pledged themselves deep into the dark.
Yeah.
And he would be able to appear. So yeah, it's definitely a bit of double entendre that he appears in the shadows, but also because of the shadow on Jacob Carradine's soul.
Like the kind of metaphorical shadow.
Yep.
I just have reading us out. The servant, Charbon, appears with a basket of fruit. Forgive me, master, for me not being here, but I went to buy fruits for your... With his good hand, Karadin struck the basket from Charbon's hands, sending the withered winter apples rolling across the carpets, and backhanded the man across the face. Forgive me, master, Charbon whispered. Fetch me paper, pen, and ink, Karadin snarled. Hurry, fool, I must send orders. But which? Which? As Charbon scurried to obey, Karadin stared at the gouges in the tabletop and shivered.
I mean, Karadin never really finds Rand.
No.
Because Rand ends up, well, he's, traveling for a while to Tyr, and then he's in the Waste.
Mm-hmm.
So Karadin has no chance of killing him. You can't even find him.
After that, after the Waste, he's surrounded by a super loyal army. Yeah, we can start whenever.
Yeah, sure.
The prologue of The Dragon Reborn.
I have started a new job today, guys. Thanks. It's a pretty cool company. They take polystyrene and turn it back into basically monoplastics. They basically turn it back into fuel that can be recycled either back into new plastic and styrofoam or burned. I think for the most part now they're recycling it into new products. They go through like 50 tons of this stuff a day.
That's a lot of styrofoam.
Yeah, it's a shit ton of styrofoam. And so my job is basically, well, it's doing a couple of things, but tracking down more styrofoam is a big chunk of it. So if anybody knows a company that gets rid of several tons of styrofoam a week, I've got the hookup for them. It is, for now, just in America. I think it's actually going to be mostly in Texas eventually. Right now it's local here in Oregon, but they're trying to do a proof of concept for technology and then sell the technology internationally. But apparently part of the problem is basically we used to ship all of our styrofoam to China, and there's no infrastructure to deal with it here in America because it just all went to China. And now they've stopped accepting it, so it's starting to build up and becoming a problem and hitting landfills. And fracking made doing it less cost effective for a while. So it's interesting. It's an interesting little business. I've got an office in a warehouse, and there's these big, machines running behind me all day, and it's a little more fun than just doing data entry. So that's my new job, guys. I'm stoked, and that's why I may slow down just a little bit in terms of like social media stuff, and hopefully we'll be able to get the editing done just as quickly. I'm going to be leaning on John to do some of that. Thanks, John.
I'll let that be you and John as usual, but I can do more social media stuff. I thought about what you said the other day. I don't think it was while we were live, but doing some work on the Twitter accounts, because it's definitely attracted some people, and we're not really there. I mean, we're there, but not super active on Twitter. I'm thinking about, to be honest, setting aside some time. I don't know exactly what I'm going to do, but maybe like for an hour or two after work every day, I can sit down and just do social media stuff. This way, while I'm getting off and finishing my shift drink, which is typically when I end my day, like just destroy any productivity that I was going to, like after a glass of whiskey, forget it. Yeah, I can maybe, just do a couple things each day. This way I'm not it's not so random.
No, my favorite thing is when you're like, I'm going to work a bunch on it tonight, and you're like, I had a shift drink.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, we're drinking tonight. That's how it works.
Yeah, not all the regulars are here, but I guess I should also let you guys know that next Thursday we'll be on a plane headed to JordanCon, so we won't be recording that night. I'm sure we'll be in Discord while, waiting in long lines at the airport.
Yes. Although I do plan to be reading.
Yeah, me too. Hopefully those 2 flights should give me enough time to just finish the Mistborn. Hey, I kind of want to take a split second. I see a couple of new faces here, for lack of a better term. welcome, guys. If this is all of your first time, I'm not exactly sure, but it looks like there's a bunch.
Unless people have been changing their names.
A handful of new people.
Welcome. We've got Darmork, Days. I feel like I've seen Days before. Maybe not.
I think so, yeah.
Mihefk, Serignon. Those are all the new folks. But yeah, no, it's cool to see new faces every day.
Yeah, just wanted to say welcome.
One thing I wanted to talk about before we went, though, was Jordan Con a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
I'm pretty excited.
This episode will probably be released a few days before Jordan Con.
Nope.
When are we? The calendar's right in front of me. I could probably look at it. This will be 90.
It'll be 101.
Oh, okay. So this episode will be released a few days after Jordan Con is over.
But we're recording it before Jordan Con.
Yeah.
So we're super excited to go. You've probably already heard the live episode if I've timed things correctly. So you'll already know how it goes, and we don't yet. So congratulations.
Yeah, we've talked about this a bunch before, but we're going to be recording as much as we can while we're at Jordan Con and just interview some people, talk to whatever chosen we run into while we're there, friends with the podcast, and make a little episode out of it. So it'll be episode 100 will be live at Jordan Con, which is pretty exciting. It's also our 1-year anniversary, guys, of starting the podcast.
The 19th is when I posted episode 0. So we'll be flying to Jordan Con on our 1-year anniversary.
Mm-hmm. It's pretty sweet. And also episode 100.
And also episode 100.
I know. It's cool that they're all happening at once. Also, if you're a donor, thank you for sending us to Jordan Con.
Thank you so much, guys.
I've said this in my social media posts recently, but we wouldn't have been able to afford that alone.
No.
A trip across the country, time off work, all that. But it's paid for. You guys bought the plane tickets and the hotel room.
Thank you for listening to the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Rate us in the Apple Podcast app or support us on Patreon. Is that good enough?